RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom. Informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI. Food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It is Tuesday, the 23rd of July, 2024. It's program number 1216 of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, in addition to 101.1 FM radio, you can also get us at our website, rcistlucia.com. All our previous shows are downloadable on that platform in podcast form. And you can also get us live on Facebook. Just search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. And please be sure to like and share that as well with your friends and family. The number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, 452-3046. That's our landline number here, 452-3046. And you can also message in on our WhatsApp number. That is 724-0008. Once you've got that app. Again, you can also call in if you so choose, especially if you're living overseas. That number is 758-724-0008. Now, some history for today. On this day in the year 1777, King Louis XVI of France and his foreign minister clandestinely agreed to supply the United States with munitions during the American Revolution. In the year 1829, William Austin Burt patented America's first typewriter. It was known as the typographer. In 1840, the Union Act was passed by the British Parliament, uniting Upper and Lower Canada. In 1944, on this day, July the 23rd, Bretton Woods Conference ended, establishing the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, later part of the World Bank, as well as the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. 1995, on this day, saw the comet Hale-Bopp being discovered, and it became visible to the naked eye nearly a year later. And in 2015, on this day, some more astronomical news. NASA's Kepler mission announced the discovery of the most Earth-like planet yet discovered. And it was called Kepler 452b, and it was about 1,400 light years away from Earth. And we now move on to our dish of the day. The daily dish is brought to you the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+, with all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We are so glad, gasway and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses, Jules Lanes, and Flag Street in Viewfort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program for today. And I think we're going to spend a bit of time just remembering some individuals, of course, who made significant contributions to St. Lucia. Indeed, today, in fact, is going to be the send-off for Dr. Martin Didier. And he passed quite recently, unfortunately, after a battle with cancer. And, of course, he is going to be memorialized and remembered with his funeral service happening in less than, about an hour's time from now. So certainly we want to, again, extend our condolences to his family, his wife, Dr. Grandison, Marie Grandison Didier, and his daughters, Dr. Melanie Didier, Dr. Leah Didier, his extended family, and of course his individuals who he worked very close with, his friends, colleagues in the medical fraternity, the many members of the staff at Tapia Hospital, and so certainly his patients, of course, over the years, and we definitely want to remember him at this time. Now, just yesterday, we also got news of the passing of Dr. Edsel Edmonds, and of course, as you mentioned, he had a dual contribution to St. Lucia in the first instance in the field of agriculture, and then later on in the Foreign Service of St. Lucia. There's, in fact, there's a statement which is captured within the St. Lucia Times, which I'll just share very quickly for the benefit of the listening public. Former St. Lucia Ambassador Dr. Joseph Edsel Edmonds, OBE, has died. Opposition leader Alan Chasney paid tribute to Edmonds on Facebook, describing him as a distinguished son of St. Lucia who served the country with dedication and honor as ambassador to Washington from 1984 to 1997. Ambassador Edmonds was not only a revered diplomat, but also an eminent agricultural scientist whose contributions to science and research have left an indelible mark on our country and the broader Caribbean region, Chasney noted. The former prime minister also noted the former diplomats numerous awards. They included the Office of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, OBE, awarded by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Legacy Award for international service, and the honor of having a nematode, Longidorus edmundsi, named after him. Chasney said the awards testified to the former diplomat's exceptional contributions to nematology and agriculture. According to Chasney, Edmonds was rightly cited as a pioneer of the conservation movement in St. Lucia and recognized as a Caribbean icon in science, research, and innovation. His legacy is one of profound impact and lasting inspiration, the UWP leader asserted. He extended his deepest condolences to the former diplomat's family and friends, declaring that his death was a great loss to the nation, but his legacy will live on to continue to inspire and guide. And that piece coming from the St. Lucia Times. And of course, it also did mention his contribution to the conservation movement. More specifically, he was actually one of the founding members of the St. Lucia National Trust back in 1975. And at that time, we, of course, pretty much only had the St. Lucia Archaeological and Historical Society as the sort of pioneer of conservation in the country, and they helped establish St. Lucia's first museum with some of their early players, the likes of B.H. Easter, who was English headmaster of St. Mary's College, and later on served in the University of West Indies extramural studies department. And as well, other individuals from that very early period were sort of the pioneers of Brother Canis Collins, for instance, and they helped to establish very early research into archaeology and historical conservation and preservation, and that sort of birthed sufficiently, one would think, the continuation of that movement, so that when this whole redevelopment of the Grosley area, which had then been dubbed or renamed as Rodney Bay, came about, and the whole proposal for the creation of a causeway to Pigeon Island, the original plan then was to establish, to develop a sort of a condominium area or neighborhood on Pigeon Island. And the likes of Mr. Eddie Edmonds, Dr. Edmonds, as well as many others, Mr. Fitzgerald York, Mr. Robert DeVoe, um, and so many others, in fact, assisted in Mr. Julian Hunt, Sir Julian Hunt now, in fact, convincing the government not to go that route with respect to Pigeon Island, and in fact to recognize its historic value, its value as a conservation space, and it of course then became a national park, St. Lucia's first national park. So certainly the efforts of Dr. Edmonds certainly do need to be remembered. As I did mention yesterday, he was an agricultural scientist. He made a sterling amount of contribution in terms of research here on island. And in fact, just yesterday, just a couple of days ago, as I was mentioning, trying to reorder some papers and files, and finding so many pieces, of course, that are attributed to the work that was done by the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands, as it was back then, and in developing lots of research. There was a very, very healthy research agenda, which gentlemen like Dr. Edmonds and my dad, Sir Alex George, were actually engaged in trying to commercialize very, very many probable areas, from mangoes to potatoes to avocados, and of course, even in the area of livestock, lots of work done by Mr. Stephen Fontenelle, and lots um, material which really is still applicable to this day in terms of our efforts with respect to food security. So certainly want to acknowledge the contribution that Dr. Edsel Edmonds made in so many different fields, and of course later on representing the interests of St. Lucia at the United States, within the United States, but also, of course, the other agencies which were based in Washington, D.C., as we just mentioned, the World Bank and the IMF, based in Washington, D.C., as well as the Organization of American States, the OAS. So certainly we want to remember his contribution today. Also, unfortunately, news that a cultural hero has also gone on to a greater plane, and that of Mr. Joseph Ramo Polio. And I think some of us would have remembered him or found out about him for the first time thanks to that of Flow and its telephone directories, and he was one of those who found himself on the cover of one of those directories some years back, and certainly his talent gave him some clear recognition in terms of his contribution. And there's a very lovely piece by Mr. Tony Nicholas, which reads as follows on the St. Lucia Times. Renowned folk musician and St. Lucian cultural icon Joseph Ramo Polio has died. Polio, who celebrated his 95th birthday on July the 10th, was celebrated then by the Cultural Development Foundation, CDF, and the Folk Research Center. In a joint statement issued on Polio's birthday, the CDF and FRC described him as Papa Kilti, or the father of culture. The release went on to say that Polio was a true inspiration and a beacon of excellence, with a lifetime of achievements and contributions to folk music. Your outstanding passion and dedication to the arts, folk culture, and the community has aided in shaping the landscape and the very fabric of our society. Your legacy as a revered folk musician and violinist continues to influence musicians, established and upcoming. The statement ended by saying, and wished the icon a happy birthday. On learning of Joseph's passing, the former executive director of the FRC, Raisa Joseph, took to social media to pay tribute. A folk and cultural hero has died, she stated. His contributions to national and cultural development is undeniable. Through the art of music as a violinist, he has etched his name in the melodic folk rhythms that underscore St. Lucian culture, Joseph went on to say. Ramo Polio, SLMM, St. Lucian Medal of Merit, MBE, hailed from the southern community of Belleville, Vieux, often described as the cultural capital of St. Lucia. He formed the Ramo Polio Band in 1979 with 5 other musicians playing the quattro, banjo, violin, guitar, and shak. Polio was also a member of the Mount Gaillon Band, performing songs geared at promoting traditional dances such as quadrille and waltz. The band became a staple at cultural celebrations such as La Wars, La Marguerite, and Journée Creole. Along with various groups and musicians over the years, Polio performed in Martinique, in French Guiana, Barbados, Trinidad, England, Canada, and the Seychelles. He was awarded the St. Lucia Medal of Merit Silver for his meritorious contribution to the folk arts in the year 2000 and as an MBE, member of the British Empire, in the year 2015. So certainly, again, we want to extend condolences to his family and, of course, the cultural community at his passing. And certainly, there has been, I think, some good effort in trying to ensure that we are seeing some intergenerational exchange. And that's sometimes the fear that we have that uh, culture is tangible as well as intangible. And culture being a way of life, quite often we end up possibly boxing away certain aspects of our culture, and it sort of becomes this sort of a folk thing, and then but how do you get it into the mainstream? How do you ensure that it does this sort of crossover, that it remains popular on a wide scale? And that's really, really very important. And I think we do have to be mindful of that, the style of music that we have. Of course, these things are never static, yes, and they change, yes. But there is certainly a value in its continued propagation and learning. And individuals like Ramo Polio, as practitioners of it, of course, and the way they, of course, learned it was through learning it from other individuals who passed on certain traditions in that way. And from the musical tradition perspective, that is really very important. So we do want to pay homage to him, and of course also a number of other individuals who are out there and are making their own contribution in trying to ensure that that is continued, especially in the area of violin. There was a very good program I know that had been started looking at grassroots music and working with certain schools, looking at the Marsha School, for instance, I know is one of the beneficiary schools where students were given that opportunity to learn how to play the violin and other string instruments, and that's a really important aspect of continuing this effort. I know the Venezuelan embassy has played some role in that regard in terms of exchanges in Quattro. Quite recently, I think Mr. Robert Rene did a tour over there with some others to Venezuela as well, and that cultural exchange in terms of our own folk traditions being shared with them, and of course, learning about their own as well and seeing the similarities and the areas for potential growth. And others who have taken on who were part of that program, I think Mr. Yannick James, for instance, a gentleman who's a violinist as well, continuing some of these traditions. And of course, um, Charlie, and his band, who have been doing this for many, many years as well. Kudos to them. But of course, the question is, that growth in and continuity is something that we do have to certainly continue to see. And yes, there's the School of Music, but at the national level, the need to have, um, whether you want to call it a national orchestra or national strings orchestra, those are really important institutions to continue to propagate music, because it is certainly a fantastic acknowledgement of our culture, of ourselves, of our rhythms, of what has certainly been part of us for a very, very, very long time, and of course, from a cultural economy perspective, great opportunity and great value for that. We've seen so many of our musicians, of course, who've headed overseas by virtue of being part of bands on cruise vessels, on cruise lines. But that tradition certainly is very important, that it is inculcated and becomes part of community life in in every pocket of St. Lucia. And so how that is achieved, I think, is to get to that point where we're seeing that level of vibrancy is really, really important. Some may say that, of course, when you plan it out in such a way, it may not be authentic, but I do believe that, like with everything else, music education is supposed to be a staple within or a mandatory requirement, regardless of whether somebody decides to go into the academics or the skill or TVET or whatnot. It needs to certainly be part of that learning experience. So we do hope that perhaps something well can be done in terms of his honor with respect to Ramo Polio. I don't know what format it might potentially take, but maybe an award for violinists or whatever the case may be. But certainly, um, we want to thank him, of course, for the contribution that he made over his lifetime. That's our dish of the day for today. And when we come back, we're going to take in our weather report and then head to the phone lines.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A plus, need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Boss, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses, Grocery Lanes, and Slack Street in Viewfort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home.
Really?
Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with these tile stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my number one store for everything tile. And with their new In Living color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous styles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and Viewfort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And also, of course, the 1.1 is now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Tile and Bath. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from the east and east-southeast near 20 miles per hour or 31 kilometers per hour with gusts near showers. The weather partly cloudy to cloudy skies with scattered showers, some of which may be heavy and isolated thunderstorms. The forecast for the lesser Antilles, partly cloudy to cloudy with scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms over the Windward Islands and areas further south. Elsewhere, skies will be fair to partly cloudy with a few showers. And the tropical weather outlook. Moist and unstable conditions associated with a weak surface trough will continue to cause cloudiness with scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms over the southern half of the region during the forecast period. A tropical wave located over the central tropical Atlantic is moving westward near 15 miles per hour or 24 kilometers per hour. This wave is expected to affect the region from tomorrow evening. Also, tropical cyclone formation is not expected over the tropical Atlantic during the next 7 days. And this was your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bar.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home.
Really?
Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with the style stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my number one store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous styles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and View Fort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
And welcome back to our program here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It's about 26 minutes before the hour of 2 o'clock. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. You can also message in via WhatsApp number. That is 724-0008. Now, of course, over in the United States of America, what difference a day makes, and certainly in terms of politics, a day can be a very long time as well. And we're seeming to see that with respect to the just started campaign of Kamala Harris, the current Vice President of the United States of America. And she is looking to become the Democratic Party's nominee in the upcoming general election in November this year. It's not a very long way to go, and the countdown certainly does mean that every day will matter for her in terms of the campaign. But apparently, she seems to be off to a pretty good start. And at least in terms of funding and financing. Now, of course, in the United States, campaign financing has been a major issue over the years, and attempts to clean and sanitize where the money comes from with respect to campaign financing in the United States has always been a big thing. But it's still, I wouldn't say a free for all, but certainly it still is something that is left up to individual parties as well as candidates to be able to raise funds. And so there's no parity in that regard. You can raise pretty much however much you can. Once, of course, that money, those resources are not coming from foreign entities or foreign powers that may very well want to persuade or to shift, certain agendas. And so beyond that, there's quite a lot of money that is put into campaign financing every single election. And of course, they come fairly often, every 2 years or so, given the system that they actually have. But of course, presidential elections are big, um, well, they're big sinks when it comes to taking up money in the United States. And she has certainly gotten off to a pretty good start in that within just the first day of her being placed as the likely individual to become the Democratic Party candidate, she's been able to raise, I think, somewhere in the region of $80 million. Has been the largest single daily raise in terms of campaign funds, and that may be partly due to the fact that, as we've been hearing over the past couple of weeks, a number of individuals who would have been giving money to the Democratic Party had, in fact, been holding out because they had waning confidence in the electability of the incumbent President Joe Biden to actually defeat Donald Trump in the upcoming general election. And of course, although the beginning of the year, it looked like Mr. Biden was ahead, but Trump has been slowly edging upwards. In fact, was in the lead, and it only got even worse with the recent debate where support for Joe Biden plummeted due to his performance there and questions over his age and whether, in fact, he would have been fit to lead the country for another 4 years. And so, of course, since the arrival of Kamala Harris, although her poll numbers, yes, they've gotten better, they're still not where they need to be in terms of assuring her a victory as yet. But her, if anything, is pretty clear that she's certainly been able to pull out quite a lot of small contributions. There's been a lot of efforts by individuals. And for those who know a lot of politics, quite often, although the ladies are not the ones in on the front line necessarily being the candidates, they're often the ones behind the scenes, in the campaign offices, on the phones, working the various networks to try to get out people to vote and to get funding. And it appears that she's been getting quite a lot of support from that regard as well, from females who, in fact, want to see a woman president in the United States, in the White House. And it appears that that is going well and in her favor. And of course, the big question is, given that level of momentum and support that she's already gotten within just within a less than 48 hours, it looks very, very promising as a proxy representation that she certainly is gaining a lot of support and momentum in this regard. Well, she's certainly going to need all the dollars she can to be able to upend, of course, Donald Trump, who has been surging despite all the various issues against him, despite the fact that he lost already, then he is his issues of being a convicted felon, lots and lots of other issues in terms of his state of play. But there are a lot of people out there who are willing to put all of that aside and to support his agenda for a re-election come the November, is it the 5th, in this upcoming general election. So, of course, another big question for a lot of people because, we have seen, yes, Kamala around, but who is she really? And we can perhaps take some of that in just a bit. But let's go to the phone lines, just taking a call before we head to that particular clip. Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Yes, good afternoon. It is said that the business of America is business, and I say that with reference to the fact that it seems that lobbyists will always have a lot of influence on American politics.
Certainly.
So that, all the funds that have been raised since Kamala is actually, going to run for president, I wonder down the line if, the government, the U.S. government actually make independent decisions, without the influence of those lobbyists.
Well, that's always a very good question, caller. And you're right about that, that the United States, Washington, D.C. is the home of the lobbyists, right?
Right.
Every agent, and it's not even just businesses, but also even like charities and societies and associations. Everybody has an office in Washington, D.C. Everybody wants to have the air of the government because, let's face it, the United States government is singularly perhaps the most powerful entity in the world. And they certainly are able to, help out everybody if they so choose, so to speak. And everybody wants a piece of the pie. So, yep, certainly. And in terms of policies, too, of course, they all want to be ensuring that they get their policy agendas put forward. So,
exactly.
It is the nature of the beast. You're very correct about that.
Right.
And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
Okay. On another matter, with reference to the death of Ramo Polio, there was a movie that came out in 2003 called Open Waters. And on the soundtrack of that movie actually features his music.
Ah, okay.
I think it came about because years ago, the Folk Research Center, in conjunction with the Smithsonian Institute, they cut a CD called, I think, that's to do some St. Lucian folk music.
Okay.
So I think from that CD, then the music actually got onto the soundtrack of that movie.
Very, very interesting.
I'm not sure any other local music has ever, been featured, in a movie that was, screened internationally.
I think quite recently, some music by Keen Cotter, Mecca, was actually utilized in a series. It was an international series on Netflix. Can't remember exactly the name of it, but I do recall just very, very recently actually that happened.
Yeah, but it's good that we should actually document those things, to see,
yes, certainly. It's certainly part of the trend to see that, look, hey, it's big business out there right now in terms of entertainment. I mean, whether it's Hollywood, Bollywood, Nollywood, and of course these platforms like Hulu and Netflix really mean that there's a lot of content generation. And if we can get into maybe not necessarily producing the music, the movies, but at least being part of it in that way, like in the music, that's amazing. That's pretty awesome. Definitely.
All right, take care.
Thanks very much for that contribution, caller, and have a good one. And of course, it does speak to the power of the globalizing push that we're seeing in so many different industries right now, and opportunities to find a spot there. Now, of course, coming back to the whole matter of Kamala Harris, I mean, yes, we have a reasonable idea about some of her background and in terms of coming from California and who her parents might be, and that she's coming from a mixed race background, former AG in the state of California. But I thought it would be useful to maybe have a little bit of a listen, especially, of course, as she has been thrust into the moment at this point. I think we do have a clip from ABC that speaks a bit to who she is. Let's take in a listen.
106 days, we are going to take our case to the American. And so over the next 106 days, we are going to take our case to the American people, and we are going to win.
From the presidential headquarters in Delaware, Vice President Kamala Harris taking over the campaign office from Joe Biden.
We are deeply, deeply grateful for his service to our nation.
Who called into the event while recovering from COVID after stepping down from the race.
Joe, are you watching? You hear this clapping? Can you see it?
I'm watching. I'm watching.
I knew it.
Voters reacting to the news.
I think for her to carry the torch makes sense.
My biggest thing is making sure that Trump doesn't get in the White House. But I really want to know, too, what her policies are. That's the big thing for me.
Harris preparing for her biggest moment yet, as she seems poised to become the first Black woman and Asian American to lead a major party ticket. She's been a trailblazer throughout her 30-plus years as a public servant.
I will be the first, but I will not be the last. I was raised by a mother who said that to me all the time.
She's now racked up endorsements, including former Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The newly launched Harris campaign raising a record $81 million in the first 24 hours. As she steps into the spotlight, Harris will face criticisms of her past from both Republicans over issues like immigration and Democrats, wary of her time as a prosecutor and her sometimes bumpy public persona.
I love Venn diagrams. It's just something about those three circles and the analysis about where there is the intersection, right? Yeah, I see people that you agree with me, right? We did it. We did it, Joe.
Some may think of Harris in the context of her memorable moments and comments that have gone viral.
My mother she would give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us, I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
This moment, once again, flooding social media.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Pop star Kesha even releasing a remix of her song Blow, featuring Harris.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Dance. She's famously been portrayed by comedian Maya Rudolph on SNL.
The Democratic Party needs to stop taking Black women for granted, specifically one Black woman, me.
To her husband Doug and stepchildren, the 59-year-old political veteran is Mamala.
And I've had a lot of titles over my career, and certainly vice president will be great. But Mamala will always be the one that means the most.
Her story began in the San Francisco Bay Area, a first-generation American born to an Indian mother and a Jamaican father who divorced when she was 6. For Harris and her sister Maya, their mother, Shamala, a breast cancer researcher, was their North Star.
Our mother was fierce in her belief that you will be judged based on your actions, not your words.
Her mother raised her and Maya as Black women because that's what they were. And it was a very intentful upbringing. And Kamala really, was proud of it.
A formative experience was being bused to school, something she talked about during a 2019 debate.
There was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
Every school day of the year in Berkeley, the buses move almost 3,500 children across town.
To be able to be bused and go into this other environment, it transports you into a whole nother little, universe. It just expands your mind. If the bus driver needed to say something and the kids were talking, Kamala would make sure, people tamped down so that everyone can listen to what the bus driver was saying.
Is that to be on TV? Yeah. Is we?
I recall her saying that she wouldn't be senator if she hadn't had that opportunity.
She went on to study at Howard, a historically Black university, where she was on the school's debate team, preparing for her law school at UC San Francisco.
She did the work. There was nothing given to her. And it was hard. She was one to not let anyone tell her who she was.
She worked her way up the political chain, first as deputy district attorney in Oakland in the 1990s, prosecuting gang violence, drug trafficking, and sexual abuse. In 2004, she became the first woman in San Francisco's history to become district attorney. She was later elected California's Attorney General, the first female and person of color in that position, before going on to join the U.S. Senate in 2017. At the time, she was only the second Black female to become a U.S. Senator.
I intend to fight. I intend to fight for Black Lives Matters. I intend to fight for truth and transparency and trust.
Harris became known for her work on the Judicial and Intelligence Committees, with a strong stance on civil and abortion rights, which she grilled future Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh about during his nomination hearing.
Can you think of any laws that give the government the power to make decisions about the male body?
I'm not thinking of any right now, Senator.
In 2019, she too ran for president.
Sick of this? Well, think about this.
Taking aim at Donald Trump in this campaign ad.
He's tearing us apart. She'll bring us together.
On the debate stage, she got tough with Joe Biden.
It was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country.
Joe Biden then tapping her as his running mate in August 2020. Harris's debate skills were put to the test against Vice President Pence.
Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000
He said he's
a
going to
year.
repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
Her 2020 victory, another first.
And to the children of our country, regardless of your gender, our country has sent you a clear message. Dream with ambition, lead with conviction, and see yourselves in a way that others may not, simply because they've never seen it before. But know that we will applaud you every step of the way.
As Vice President, Harris has taken the lead on the abortion rights issue following the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade.
America must trust women. America must honor individual choice. America must defend freedom.
In 2021, President Biden tasking Harris to lead diplomatic efforts with 3 Central American countries to address the root causes of migration. The White House praising her work, but Republicans have hit her hard on the immigration issue.
Kamala had one job, and that was to fix the border. Now imagine her in charge of the entire country.
In 2021, after Harris was criticized for not visiting the southern border yet as vice president, she remained cagey in her response to NBC.
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border.
In her very first overseas trip as vice president, she told Guatemalan migrants to not come to the U.S., drawing criticism from immigration advocates.
Do not come. The United States will continue to enforce our laws and secure our border.
While Republicans had previously hammered Biden for his age, the script has now been flipped. At 78, Trump is now the oldest presidential nominee in history. Trump reacting to the campaign shakeup on his Truth Social, posting a series of seething messages saying he will now have to start all over again. Trump himself was once a supporter of Kamala Harris. He donated $6,000 to her 2014 campaign for re-election as California Attorney General, including this check for $5,000. Harris heading to Wisconsin to campaign on Tuesday.
We have doors to knock on. We have people to talk to. We have phone calls to make. And we have an election to win.
Ready with her own message.
And are we willing to fight for it? And when we fight, we win.
President Biden returns to Washington, D.C. tomorrow.
Right, and that piece coming out of ABC. And it appears that, of course, it is a bit of a fait accompli with respect to her becoming the Democratic nominee to become the next president of the United States. Based on a delegate survey, she's got about 2,887 delegates based on that AP survey. 1976 required for a nomination. Let's go to the phone lines. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Good afternoon, Mr. George.
How are you doing, sir?
Not too bad. Huh?
Wonderful.
While listening to Kamala Harris, even right now, she is not the Prime Minister of America, United States of America yet, but people want to throw as much crap they can find on her. What kind of country is America?
Well, that happens here too, caller. That's not...
Yeah,
that's unfortunately politics.
And their job is to go out and find as much crap as they find to paint her with crap.
Well, that is the nature of politics, caller. You'll find that you'll always find, and of course, the reality is she's now being thrust into the limelight. So you're going to get that. You're going to get attempts at turning her into the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
That's what people will do. And of course, there'll be lots of people who will be paid lots of money to do just that, right? So it's
robocall.
Sorry?
A robocall.
Robocall. What is?
They pay millions to throw those crap.
Yeah, well, it is the nature of politics. It's let's face it. I mean, as one of the last callers said, politics is big business. There are lots of people who stand to gain and stand to lose quite a lot, and
Yeah, but
unfortunately,
what you think
they're
between hours she could pick up 81 million?
mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So do you think that money just going just like that, or there will be a payback later on if they succeed?
Well, you know, Caller, but that is, I mean, that amount is always going to be necessary. There's going to be lots of people giving support, and in fairness to her, in this instance, a lot of the money that has been raised is actually from small donations.
Yeah.
So it's not big business or coming in.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, of course, there's going to be a lot of that, but she's actually raising quite a bit from
But
ordinary
those people
Americans who want to support
pay
her
these
campaign.
big donation, what they want in return?
Well, Caller, it's it's a nature. That is the issue of campaign financing, and it's a problem that exists in a lot of places around the world where we don't actually have any kind of controls regarding campaign finance. Right here in St. Lucia, we don't have any controls either. Theoretically, you can have funding coming from lots of different sources, and which is of course why in this context I mean, yes, there are rules regarding things like integrity in public life, and politicians and politically exposed people are expected to declare their assets under the Integrity in Public Life Act. But in terms of the campaign, I'm not sure how much there is a control with respect to that. You get a lot of.
Do St. Lucian declare the asset?
Sorry, I didn't hear that question.
I asked, do St. Lucian declare their asset?
Well, under that legislation, members of parliament, the permanent secretaries, and some other positions are in fact required to, on an annual basis, submit declarations. Yes, so they're expected to under the law.
I could remember that Guy Joseph refused to declare his asset, and nobody cannot force him to do it.
Well, that's part of the challenge, because I'm not sure that what you're saying is necessarily the case, because the Integrity Commission does not actually, as far as I know, they don't actually publish who actually submits or not. I'm not sure. I think that's one of the areas where I think, or maybe after a while they eventually publish, but it's not something that we often know. I don't think. And the transparency there perhaps is important. In the case of the United Kingdom, for example, every time a minister of government travels, right? That has to be declared. The cost of the trip has to be declared. If they receive gifts,
the trip have to be declared,
right? The gifts have to be declared. There's a whole process, and even then there are issues there, because we've seen how in the United Kingdom, there've been whole situations where people have resigned, ministers have resigned over spending and what have you. But it is something that we're not there yet in terms of our openness with respect to our governance system, and I think maybe one day we will be mature enough to get to that point as well. But it is certainly a big issue. I think, for instance, like travel by ministers is not something that we still have a full grasp on, in terms of who's out and when and for what purpose, and that sort of thing. And then when it comes to campaign financing, I would say it's even more open to speculation, because we don't really have any set guidelines, legal requirements when it comes to that under our system of government.
Yeah, but in United Kingdom, you travel, you mustn't accept, like somebody will say, I'll give you a trip to never know, you and your wife and your children. and you accept it, you could get yourself in deep water.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And I think you only allow, like, you may accept gifts up to a certain value. There are a number of restrictions when it comes to that, because the reality is, people may feel that, look, you're accepting a gift, and the question is it a quid pro quo? What is this gift for? Yeah. So it's definitely in terms of campaign financing, it's part of that same kettle of fish. Yeah, definitely. But
Yes, but by accepting, the people that give in, they have they're looking for influence, you know.
and then on the other side of it, caller, we will then hear some people say they won't vote unless you pay me. You know, so
Well,
you see how
is,
corrupting it
that
becomes.
is St. Lucian philosophy.
So,
that bred in St. Lucian, that they will take money to vote.
There you go. So money can be a very, very corrupting system when it comes to politics in that way. But I think for a lot of people, they figure that
accept money to vote, can they find them or do something to them?
Well, there are rules about it under our Elections Act. Yeah, it's illegal. You know, that kind of inducement is definitely illegal. But then you've got to be able to find the proof. Yes, exactly. You've got to catch it in the act and all of that. So that's where I think, I'm not sure that we've ever seen any cases where people have been brought to justice for engaging in that kind of activity. But caller, thanks very much for raising those matters, though, because they continue to be
right. Good afternoon, Mr. Judge.
Concerns regarding how effective is this whole idea of democracy, including right here on our island. Now, of course, that's our time to end the program, unfortunately, and we do hope that you'll be able to join us again for another lunchroom. And we'll be back tomorrow, God willing, same time, around 1 o'clock, and we do hope you can join us for that. Take care.